Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Bible Study Minute. Today we're taking a look at 1 Kings chapters 21 and 22. And in these chapters, we see the end of King Ahab's life. Now, scripture tells us that everything that King Ahab did was against the Lord, and his heart was totally devoted to evil and serving idols. So, these final chapters are really no different. So, chapter 21 begins with Ahab wanting to buy a field that was next to him so that he could use it for a garden. But the owner of the field refused to sell it to him. Now, Ahab was okay with this. I mean, he was distraught. But then his wife Jezebel steps in and she's like, you know what? You're the king. You need to take charge. And she devises a plot for her husband to get this field. And the way that she does this is by causing the elders of Israel to sin by killing an innocent man. And then, of course, Ahab is happy to take this field. But then the Lord speaks to him through Elijah. And when Elijah shows up, Ahab knows that something good is not going to happen to him. And then, of course, Elijah pronounces judgment against him, so on and so forth. Then, sometime later, Ahab is about ready to go to war so that he can reclaim part of his territory. And he brings the king of Judah with him, Jehoshaphat. And Ahab brings in all of his prophets, and to get a word from the Lord on whether or not they should go into battle, all of his prophets say, yeah, it's a good idea. You're going to succeed. But then Jehoshaphat kind of knows that this isn't quite right. So he asks, is there another prophet that you can bring in that speaks for the Lord? And then, of course, Ahab knows that there is one prophet that he has excluded from the group and who actually does speak for the Lord. But he always speaks negatively against him, which is obvious because everything he does is against the Lord. And he brings them in, tells them that, yeah, it's not a good idea. And if you do, that this is what's going to happen. And they still decide to go into war anyway. And eventually Ahab is killed in battle. And that is the end of his life. But what we see here with these closing chapters is a contrast between two kings. We see Ahab on the one side, who was completely devoted to doing what was evil. But then we see Jehoshaphat, which scripture tells us walked in the ways of his father and tried to do what was right in the sight of the Lord, even if, in this one instance, he did not follow the Lord's instruction by refraining from going into battle. But what we see here is someone who disobeyed the Lord and someone who followed the Lord. And in this particular instance, we see the importance of walking in obedience to the Lord. Because when we walk against him, we know that that path eventually leads to destruction, which we've seen in the Psalms as well as in the Proverbs. So that's really our main takeaway, is walking in obedience to the Lord's commands, knowing that going against him is going to lead us down a path of sin, death, and destruction. That's really the only end that comes from disobeying the Lord. Instead, we need to be someone like Jehoshaphat, who walks in obedience to the Lord. Now, he didn't do it perfectly. He didn't remove all the high places and places of worship that were against the Lord, but he himself followed the Lord. And we need to walk in a similar manner and walk in a better manner because we have the Spirit of the Lord in us. So that's my encouragement for you today, is to look at these two kings and how they're contrasted in these final chapters, and then figure out which path that you're going to walk down. Are you going to walk as someone who walks against the Lord or someone who walks with the Lord? So, until next time, grace and peace.